Before we dive into one of the most extraordinary political implosions in recent Cornish history, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to be here for what's coming next because Cornwall's political landscape is about to get a whole lot more interesting, and we're covering every twist and turn. Right, let's talk about Reform UK in Cornwall. 6 months ago, they were the golden children of local politics, storming Cornwall Council with 28 seats and becoming the largest group in the chamber. Nigel Farage himself stood at Carnbury in February and promised a political earthquake, and for one glorious moment in May, it looked like he'd delivered. Fast forward to October, and the whole thing's gone absolutely pear-shaped. We're talking leadership resignations, accusations of bullying, councillors vanishing on special leave, and whispers of more defections to come. This isn't just a political stumble. This is a full-blown train wreck, and we need to understand exactly how a party went from triumph to turmoil in less time than it takes most councils to agree on a budget. Let me set the scene for you. 1st of May, Reform UK celebrates their victory. 28 councillors, the largest single group on Cornwall Council. The champagne's flowing, metaphorically speaking, and Reform supporters are buzzing with the promise of real change. They've been banging on about a Doge-style reorganisation of Cornwall Council, promising to tackle that eye-watering £1.3 billion debt. They were going to shake things up, hold the Liberal Democrat and Independent coalition to account, and bring some proper scrutiny to Lies Kerno. The expectation from political observers was clear. This lot were going to give the administration an absolute hammering. 6 months later, and what have we got? Radio silence on the debt reorganisation, virtually no effective opposition, and a group that appears to be eating itself from the inside out. Here's where it gets properly interesting. Despite being the largest opposition group, Reform hasn't landed a single meaningful blow on the coalition cabinet. I spoke to a member of the current administration who admitted he'd been bracing himself for a real political kicking from Reform councillors. Instead, he's been genuinely surprised, not just by the lack of opposition, but by the supportive comments he's been receiving from several Reform members. Think about that for a moment. The party that promised to revolutionize Cornwall Council is now offering words of encouragement to the very administration they're supposed to be challenging. That's not opposition. That's capitulation, and it tells you everything you need to know about the chaos brewing behind closed doors. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. 6 months isn't very long to make an impact in local government. Fair point. These things take time. Bills need reading, committees need forming, relationships need building. But here's the thing. The problem isn't just about time or political inexperience. The problem, according to multiple sources, is that Reform UK in Cornwall has been tearing itself apart with infighting since practically day one. And in the second week of October, that infighting exploded into public view in spectacular fashion. October the 9th, Deputy Leader Councillor Roland O'Connor drops an absolute bombshell. He's not just stepping down from his leadership role, he's leaving Reform UK entirely and becoming a standalone independent. This wasn't some quiet retirement or polite disagreement over policy. O'Connor was explicit about his reasons. He told his constituents in St. Columb Major, St. Morgan, and St. when that remaining within the party was limiting his ability to speak and act freely for the community. He said he could now serve them without party influence. Let that sink in. One of Reform's most impressive players, a man who was supposed to help lead this political revolution, felt so constrained and frustrated by his own party that he had to walk away after just 5 months. What on earth must have been happening behind the scenes to force that decision? But wait, it gets better. 2 days later, on October the 11th, Leader Council Rob Parsonage resigns his position as Reform Group Leader. Now, he's staying on as a Reform councillor for Torpoint, but his official statement was about as bland as they come. Something about focusing on constituency activities. Nothing to see here. Move along. Except there's absolutely everything to see here, and the timing is far too convenient to be coincidental. Parsonage's resignation came precisely 1 day after journalists started asking questions following an extraordinary public attack by Kurt Mellows, the former chairman of the South East Cornwall branch of Reform UK. And when I say extraordinary, I mean scorched earth, take no prisoners, absolutely brutal. Mellows had clearly reached his breaking point with what he described as bullying and harassment within the party, allegations that he claims have been ignored at both regional and national levels. His assessment of Parsonage's leadership, Let me quote him directly because you need to hear this. He called him an odious little man who grabbed the leader's position and said he was failing on a massive scale. Mellows went on to say that Parsonage possesses neither the intellect nor leadership qualities, or indeed any charisma at all, required for this important role. This wasn't a quiet resignation letter or a diplomatic parting of ways. This was a full public evisceration of reformed Cornish leadership, and it's a kind of internal warfare that destroys political movements. The following day, Keith Johnson, who represents Saltash Tamer, was installed as interim leader. When journalists reached out to ask how he planned to steady the ship following the departure of two of the party's most prominent members, there was silence. No response. No strategy. No reassurance. Just a deafening quiet of a party that appears to have absolutely no idea how to handle the crisis it's currently drowning in. But the dysfunction doesn't stop at the leadership level. Oh no, the problems run much deeper than that. After the election, there was considerable anger within Reform that their councillors weren't given more chair and vice chair positions on committees. Reform argued it was political game playing by the Liberal Democrats. Council leader Lee Frost countered that Reform councillors simply didn't have the experience for those roles. And you know what? Given everything we've seen since, Frost might have had a point. I'm told complaints about this situation have escalated beyond local government, which suggests Reform's taking this all the way up the chain. Whether that achieves anything remains to be seen. Then there's the rather awkward matter of Reform councillors who live nowhere near the areas they're supposed to represent. Opposition councillors have quite reasonably questioned how effective these councillors can be when they are dozens of miles away from their constituents. Take Councillor Christine Parsonage, wife of the former leader. She lives 4 to 5 miles away from her St. Columb Minor and Colon seat. Members of Newquay Town Council absolutely slated her for not attending meetings. The criticism got so intense that she's now on special leave for 3 months. 3 months. That's a quarter of the time she's been in office. And just last week, another Reform councillor, Suzanne Desmond, who represents Poole and Tehedy, was also granted special leave for medical reasons until November the 14th. So Reform's already depleted presence at County Hall is now even thinner, and we're only 6 months into a 4-year term. Here's where we are right now. A new leader is supposed to be elected this week, most likely tomorrow. But according to insiders, it doesn't matter who gets a job because more resignations are coming. More councillors are expected to leave the party and become independents regardless of who takes the helm. Think about that trajectory. In May, Reform UK was the largest group on Cornwall Council with 28 seats and grand ambitions of transforming local government. By late October, they are hemorrhaging members. Their leadership has collapsed, several councillors are on extended leave, and those who remain have been largely invisible in terms of effective opposition. This isn't just a bad few weeks. This is an existential crisis for Reform UK in Cornwall. So what happens next? Can Reform regroup and become the serious political force they promised to be? Can they hold the coalition cabinet to account over the next 3.5 years? Or is this the beginning of a complete disintegration? The honest answer is nobody knows, but the smart money says it's going to get worse before it gets better. Political parties don't usually recover from this level of internal chaos and public humiliation, especially at the local level where every misstep is magnified and every resignation is noticed. What we're witnessing is a masterclass in how not to run a political operation. You can have all the electoral success in the world, but if you can't manage your people, build a coherent strategy, and maintain basic party discipline, none of it matters. Reform UK had a genuine opportunity to reshape Cornish politics and provide robust opposition to the administration. Instead, they become a cautionary tale about ambition without infrastructure, popularity without preparation, and electoral success without the leadership to sustain it. The fallout from this is going to reverberate through Cornwall Council for years. Subscribe to UK Connors because this story is far from over, and you'll want to be here when the next chapter unfolds. Trust me, in Cornish politics right now, there's nowhere else quite like it.